Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. And we've got Marshall Kosloff in the house for Crystal Ball. Marshall, thank you so much for subbing in, coming down to DC, your old city. We appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Absolutely. So for those of you guys who don't know, Marshall Kosloff, he's my co-host over at the Realignment Podcast. Just like KKF took over while I was out, Marshall's helping me, and he's gonna sub in here. We are gonna bring you guys a great breakdown of the news for both today and then next Tuesday. We're a pro-labor show after all, and so to make sure that our crew and everybody can have a little bit of time off, we are not having a show there on Labor Day. Now, we don't have a bottom graphic there on the screen. You might wonder why. It's because we have a little bit of breaking news that we'll address here at the top, which is the Texas abortion law and just really what it means, because I know that a lot of you are quite interested. But we have a lot of other fun stuff that we're gonna cover here in the show. The Newsom recall, Latino turnout, of course, that's something that's vitally important. We've got this new breakdown. Marshall's got a lot to say in terms of the gaming laws in China. They're cracking down on that. And celebrities. Donald Trump may be returning to social media, but he's got a couple of stipulations whenever it comes to that. Vivek Ramaswamy is our guest in the house. He just wrote a book named Woke Inc., which is really interesting. We actually interviewed him over at the Realignment. Wanted to make sure that those of you could get more of a breaking points type interview here on the show so we can bring that to as wide of an audience as possible. But we'll start here, Marshall, with this Texas abortion law. So what happened is that very late last night, there was the decision out of the Supreme Court, which is 5-4. Now, this is kind of interesting because it happened on something called the shadow docket. So it's not like they were ruling necessarily on what was happening here. What they were saying is that they're not going to block this Texas abortion law. Now, the abortion law, what it says is that you can't have an abortion after 6 weeks. Went into effect on Wednesday, and it was drafted by Texas specifically with the goal of trying to get the federal court to challenge it and have some sort of decision. Now, it's a little bit strange because it's not like it was an outright decision being like, yeah, the law is okay, but effectively, by allowing the law to go into place, they have really changed the landscape in America. So very quickly, I think it will mean, Marshall, that you're gonna see a swath of states across the American South pass similar laws. But at the same time, they may actually not get what they want because what you're gonna start to see here is people gonna keep pushing the envelope. Like they're not gonna necessarily stop at 6 weeks. Alabama or whatever will do a different one with the goal of going up to the court. And that really is where the court watchers are all gonna come in here. But regardless, look, I'd rather gouge my eyes out than talk about abortion for the next hour or whatever. But look, the truth is that this is a highly consequential decision, and it is probably going to drive politics for the next couple of weeks, if not months. I have no idea.
Yeah, and here's what the story means. 85 to 90% of abortions happen after that 6 week period.
Right, yeah.
So you're gonna see this real frank decline in people's access to abortion in states like Texas. And the part that's really interesting for me is Texas is one of those states which during the pandemic had all these blue state people from California move to it. Also look at Georgia in the South, a lot of people moving to Atlanta, those competitive suburbs. I'm really curious how these blue state migrants are gonna actually impact the politics of this. Because once again, Texas is changing, Georgia is changing. That's the story of the 2020 election.
That's a great point. You know, I didn't even think about that. But, you know, recently we were down in Austin whenever Krystal and I were doing Joe Rogan. And I will tell you, being in Austin, it's a whole, you know, different, obviously it's cliche at this point to say it, but it's a whole different city. I was in a coffee shop, I think I told you the story at the time, and there were like 3 people all with newborns, and they were all talking, and they're like, oh, where did you move from? They're like, oh, I'm from New York. They're like, where'd you move from? They're like, we're from California. Where'd you move from? Oh, we're from Baltimore. So it's like, obviously, you know, it's like mostly lawyers, like people coming down, blue state kind of escapees, but you're very right, which is that, you know, whenever the Georgia voting law happened, like you definitely saw kind of that suburban kind of pushback against that. This is the same thing. I don't know how it will impact the politics of Texas because this is a very, very important demographic, obviously. This is the new tax base of Austin and of Houston and Dallas. And so whether, you know, how exactly it's going to intertwine with the, you know, deep red evangelical base of the state itself, that actually is an open question. And it's like you said, it really could kind of impact the state's politics domestically in terms of backlash against Governor Abbott and more. I truly have no idea. I just don't know how it's going to play out.
Yeah, I think there are 2 big things here.
Yeah.
We were pushing this poll around, but Texas Hispanics aren't exactly the most pro-choice part
Yeah, they're
of
pro-life.
the
That's
Democratic
true.
Party. So even as the state changes, even if we see all this talk about a purple Texas, we're going to see this merge into all these different tensions, right? The whole tension of the Democratic Party right now is you have Joe Biden really dominating with working class blacks and Hispanics, but at the same time you have this upper middle class base of the party that you're talking about. It's migrating.
Yeah, I saw MSNBC and all those people really freaking out, saying it's an end to Roe versus Wade. Look, I don't, like really have a dog in the fight or whatever, but like whenever I see it, I think both people can see what they want to see. So the most pro-life people are going to say, well, the court, they're not taking this and like outright abolishing Roe versus Wade. And then of course, the most pro-choice people are going to say, this is effectively the end of Roe versus Wade. Effectively, functionally, you're going to hear those words a lot. Like we said, and as you pointed out, 85 to 90% do happen. So what does it mean? Is it outright outlawed? No. Is it, going to dramatically decrease the number of abortions in Texas? Yes. Will it set a new precedent across the South? Probably. But wanted to make sure that we brought everybody that story with the latest details. I know this is the only news program that some of you watch, which I very much appreciate.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.